Welcome to Attic Raiders Retro Reviews, where today we're journeying into a bubbling bog and taking on a menacing monster in today's game, Romp Through the Swamp. Released in 2006 by Vivid Games, this is a game for 2 to 4 players aged 4 to 104, and it's an electronic game. It's battery operated, but thankfully it's not a horribly noisy one. Some people don't like battery games, but as far as they go, this one is rather good. The box here has got some really nicely designed fonts which really evoke the feel of a swamp with slime and muck. And it's got some really nice illustrated artwork, which is relatively rare for a game that came out in the 2000s, because normally they would just be computer rendered. And as you can see from the artwork, this game features a monster, and this monster is really central to the game and its theming. So straight away, it's got bonus points in my book. On the back, it's full colour, we've got some basic instructions on here, and there's lots going on for you to look at. And of course we've got the mandatory photo of a mixed gender group of children looking on at the game with wide-mouthed astonishment. Danger, Swampy doesn't like children in his swamp. Don't disturb his sleep or he might come to get you. Try getting out of his swamp and onto the jetty, but you're not safe yet. Can you escape Swampy's last grasp? Now this game employs a very simple roll and move structure where everything in this game is purely based on luck and randomness. You've got the luck of the dice and you've got the luck of whether Swampy attacks or not, and that comes down to the random generator within him. So a big part of this game is again going to be how good that random generator is and just how unpredictable it is. Let's take a closer look. The game board itself comes in 3 pieces, which are obviously supposed to slot together like a jigsaw. And these pieces are seriously thick. I don't think I've seen many game board pieces which are as thick a piece of cardboard as this. The whole reason for that though is because it needs to be thick enough so that we've got a groove, this slot here that Swampy is going to travel along. And there's some really nice details on these. We've got strange swamp creatures, destroyed rowboats, more weird little beasties, and we've even got some deliberately blurred artwork to give a sense of depth. Our playing pieces are these characters who are partially submerged in the swamp, and I think there's something really quite disturbing about the eyeless faces on these. That is just the stuff of nightmares. It's like something from the Evil Dead claymation meltdown sections. Those eyeless sockets are just horrifying. But these little guys are great. I love that they are partially submerged. They're not just whole figures. They are struggling to get out the swamp there, and they look great. The main piece in this game is Swampy, our swamp monster, and as you can see there is some assembly required for this. So Swampy's ears need to be connected in, one on either side. His arms get connected onto their tabs, and then those arms need to be swiveled round so they are over the top of his ears like that. He then requires 3 AAA batteries, and we close up the battery housing. The battery housing is of course one which is screwed in place, which I always find annoying because you're going to have to get a screwdriver to screw that in and unscrew it every time you want to take the batteries out or put them in. And of course with a game like this you really want to be storing it with the batteries removed, otherwise you will get battery corrosion in here over time and those batteries will go flat. You can see on the bottom here, Swampy's got his on-off switch. He's got 2 freely rotating wheels at the front, 2 motorized drive wheels at the back, and he's got 1, 2, 3 push switches which are going to act as sensors so that he can sense that he is in contact with the board. He's also got 2 little pegs here which will connect into the groove in the board so that he will move in a straight line. And Swampy himself looks fantastic. I really, really love the bright, bright green. It's almost neon. And the dark purple contrasts with that beautifully. We've also got the really bright yellow here and red, and all of the colours just really pop. Swampy looks like some kind of hunchbacked swimming dragon kind of crossed with an orc or a goblin, and his hands really make him look like the creature from the Black Lagoon here. I really like that his ears are part of the design for this to work properly, and they've really incorporated that necessary design into the overall character of Swampy so that it becomes part of the design and part of him, and they didn't just have some random bars of plastic sticking out here. The fact is his ears looks really good, and he is mean looking and ready to catch some swamp trespassers. Once the 3 game board pieces have been attached together, Swampy can be slotted into his track and pulled back to his lair at the beginning of the board. Playing pieces then get placed at the start on the rickety rope bridge which they've been trying to cross when they actually fell into the swamp. The object of the game is then to splash your way through the swamp along the path, hopefully avoiding any obstacles until you eventually manage to wade out onto the wooden jetty where you will be safe. As you try to make your way through the swamp, there are of course certain squares which will help you and some which will hinder you. We have got 1, 2, 3 arrows here, so if we land on number 3, number 10 or number 17, then you get to move along that arrow and bypass some of the swamp. There are also 4 purple spaces, and if you land in one of them, you get stuck in the swamp and you have to stay there and miss a turn. In order to get out of the swamp onto the safety of the jetty, you've got to roll the exact number needed to get onto that. If you don't roll the exact number, you are going to have to wait stuck in the swamp, not moving. And that is something you don't want to happen, especially when Swampy's on the loose. At the end of each round, once everybody's had their turn, rolled and moved their playing piece, it's then time to activate Swampy and to see what happens. To do that, we have to press the second red spike on Swampy's back. When Swampy is activated, he might do one of 3 things. He might do absolutely nothing, he might be asleep and just snore. He might move halfway across the board, grabbing victims. Or he might move right across the board.
It's dinner time. I told you you can't hide from me. No one escapes me. I told you you can't hide from me.
If you're pulled all the way back into Swampy's lair, then you have to start again on the rickety rope bridge. Occasionally somebody might not get pulled all the way back into Swampy's lair, but they might get knocked off of the path. If that happens, you need to look for the nearest white arrow to show you which square they need to go back onto. If somebody gets pushed off of the square that they were on by Swampy onto a new square, then they start the next round on that new square. Of course, sometimes things do go wrong, and one of the things that will occasionally happen is that Swampy may sometimes push a player up against one of the green nodes that he needs in order to sense that he's got to the halfway point or to the end point in order to reverse his motors. And if that happens, then he will just keep struggling in the same place and not moving at all, and that can just mess everything up. If that happens, obviously you need to reset him back to the start and put the players back onto the spaces they were on. Of course, when somebody actually gets to the safe zone, you're not actually finished the game yet. Swampy has got one more turn to try to grab you. So you have to activate him one more go, and if you can stay on there without getting dragged back into the swamp, then you've won the game. Of course, the thing is, there's not really much point in doing this because of where the safe zone actually is. Swampy's arms always come on either side of the safe zone, so nobody on the safe zone is ever actually going to get caught by Swampy, even if he comes all the way to the end of the track. So in that sense, that rule is a bit superfluous, unless you add a house rule which says that the last player on the safe zone has got to move onto a spot where they are going to be within Swampy's arm reach if he gets that far.
You can run, but you can't hide.
With Swampy taking his turn at the end of every round of movement, this game can get rather repetitive, with Swampy grabbing you and pulling you back into his lair and having to start again, because it happens a lot in this game. But the theming on this, with Swampy and the movement and the randomness, I love this. It's actually really good and really fun. And because it's an electronic system, it really is random. It's got an unpredictable nature that you just cannot predict. There is no set pattern to it. It is completely random. And that, of course, really adds to this game and makes it so much better. And the fact is, it's a swamp monster in a swamp crawling out and grabbing you and pulling you back to try to eat you. It's great. So yeah, there's no skill, there's no tactics, there's no anything like that. It's purely random luck in this game. But it's a great version of one of those kind of games. And for me, yes, random, completely random, you've got no say over it, but it's a good game. It's a good, fun game, and this is one that children love, and I can see exactly why they love it, because I love it too. So yeah, it's got drawbacks, but for me, this is a definite recommendation if you can find it. Now, this is one that does not come up very often, and in fact, it's one that I believe at the time just now is not even on BoardGameGeek.com. But at the same time, I did happen upon this in 2 different charity shops at either side of the same road on the same day one day, and I just had to have it when I saw it. So it is out there, it's just not easy to find. When you do find it, it's not one that is particularly expensive though. But I do think it's one that probably only came out in the UK, so that's going to make things difficult for a lot of people. But if you can, this is one I definitely recommend. Until next time, this is Attic Raiders Retro Reviews.